So this is the next panel, and the subject is what Star Trek taught me, especially in dealing with adversity, and bonus points if the lesson is something that you are using now to deal with the stress of the time that we're in. Again, my name is Callie. I am going to be moderating, but kind of a free-form discussion. Very interested in hearing from folks in the comment section. Tell us about the episodes that really helped you learn to deal with stuff, really important lessons that you learned. We've got about an hour. The four of us can probably go on forever, but we want to hear from you as well.
Literally.
So please drop your insights into the comments. What episodes really meant a lot to you in terms of helping you learn to deal with stuff? So Randy, why don't you go first? What do you got?
I don't know if I should go first. I feel like no. There's a reason for it too. It's because my picks for these things are always weird, and I don't want to start it off on that foot. So pick someone else.
All right,
and you'll
Niki.
see why. You'll see why. But
Okay, great. Thanks for putting me on the hot spot.
Oh, sorry. Well,
it's okay.
I was too.
It's totally fine. Before I jump in, yes, exactly.
Just proof that my opinions are always weird. So,
exactly. Before I do jump into that, though, I did want to let everyone know that Anna is putting together a list of all of the items in her tutorial, where to buy them, suggestions, things like that, and we will be posting that on Facebook and probably everywhere else. But I just wanted people to know that in case they were curious, like, wait, where do I get that thing again? So we will have that information for you. So
one other programming note, a quick shout out to Anne, who also donated. Thank you so much, Anne. We love you.
Thanks, Anne.
Oh, here we go. Look, we get one of these for Anne.
Oh,
yes.
Hearts.
Yes, we all learned how to love a candle.
Yes, exactly.
Or a sex ghost, whatever you want to call it.
All right, Niki,
so I actually don't, I mean, I guess I have specific episodes, and if we start mentioning specific episodes, I may jump in on that. But I would have to say just so my Trek series is TNG. It's what I grew up with. It's what I was watching from about age 10 on, and a lot of it was reruns because my first episode was actually the very last episode when it aired. But I would have to say that the series just in general basically taught me to keep an open mind about a lot of things. I grew up in Ohio. My upbringing, while not totally sheltered, but is a little bit more on the conservative, spectrum. And I absolutely, love my family and love the community that I grew up in. But there were definitely times when it was like, wait a minute, but there's other people out there and there's more options and possibilities that are open. And I think that the show really provided a space for me at a young age to open up my mind, think about things differently, question things, and really understand, like, it's about loving people. It's really about loving people. It's about caring for people. And it's about being there for each other, no matter the, conflict or whatever it is, and really try to listen to someone and respect people's opinions. I may not always do that the best that I can, but I absolutely think that the show gave me a foundation of that. And not to say that my family didn't, or my parents didn't teach me to be respectful of my elders and things like that. But I just think it was one more layer to be able to provide this. I don't even know what it is. It's almost like a culture within my own brain of being open to different experiences, being open to everyone, and really loving everyone for who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Heck yeah.
And also, like, isn't it funny that you came away with that, but they were under such strict regulations from TV, from the network, right? That they literally never had a gay person on the show, and they never had, several things on the actual show itself, but they used, metaphors and stories and what ifs and other weird things to try and get around it and try and get around what the network let them do, so that you could actually get that message. And like, it's a testament to their, like, TV making that it actually did come through, even though they were under those restrictions, right?
Exactly.
Heather and Jesse, what do we got?
Oh, well, so the episode that I wanted to talk about was the war without the war.
Oh, we had a wig change. I'm sorry, excuse me.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Go ahead, sorry.
But yeah, it was so from Star Trek Discovery, War Without, War Within, and I've been watching Discovery recently to decide if it's good or not. Again, it is actually a very wonderful show, and I absolutely love it. And there was definitely things that I've been picking up that I didn't really realize before. So, this episode, just recap if you don't remember, Discovery comes back from the alternate universe, the mirror universe, and they've discovered these things about Tyler, and he's like a Klingon, but not a Klingon, and he that he killed Dr. Culber, and there's this resentment towards him. I mean, he's the enemy, and they're still at war. And, he's really struggling with everything going on. And, they have to send Laurel in there to kind of fix him, right? Because he's whatever thing that they did procedure, it's not taking well, and he's, in trouble. So, but anyway, so they get him all fixed up, and he's back to his, I guess, sort of normal self, if you can call it normal. He doesn't even really know who he is really inside, and he's and so there's this scene, it's very high school, but where he goes to the mess hall and he sits down at a table by himself to eat, and Tilly gets up and she just joins him, and she says, and he's like, you don't have to do this, and she's like, no, I want to, and you don't have to, just eat, we don't have to talk unless you want to. And then everybody else gets up and sits down at the table, and it kind of, and there's other sorts of there's the other parts of the story, but I think the important thing is it's a helpful reminder that we have to forgive other people, and forgiveness is very hard to do. It's very hard for me, and like Randy, I will never forgive you for just trashing my wig just now. I'm kidding.
You don't have to, because it stands. No.
I'm very far away. I mean, I'm up in the Delta Quadrant, so
right. No, you're in the Lambda Quadrant.
But it's just like forgiveness. We have to forgive not only others, but ourselves. We're sequestered. We're probably not living the best lives we can be. It's a very awkward time, and we really have to forgive others for transgressions of the past. We have to forgive ourselves. It's funny in the story. There's a scene where Burnham talks with Tyler, and she kind of isn't there yet. She can't really forgive him because he tried to kill her. And it was interesting to me in the scene because they had kind of switched places in their circumstances in life. Where she had nothing. She was going to be in prison for life. And now he was cast adrift. He's struggling with this very weird, he doesn't know who he is, what he is. And, but it was interesting. And that to me taught me, it's that, sometimes when we are not our best selves and we're really struggling with something, we can literally become a different person. And it's important that we understand that with others, that we could end up in that same position ourselves. So we need to be forgiving of other people that might be struggling with something and maybe not behaving or doing everything as correctly as possible. Sometimes it's just a process that you just have to go through. So, so I really enjoyed that episode. It had a really great message about forgiving and forgiving other people and yourself. And, moving on, because we need to love each other. We need to accept each other for who they are, piggybacking off of what Niki said. And that's, I think, really a theme you'll find in most Trek. So,
and that's also, I mean, generically very important, but right now also, like, at least for me, even in my, like, my day job and of course everywhere else, like not half the time, but like I will find myself being like, this is not me. Like, this is not who I normally am. This is not how I normally act. And to your point, like forgiving myself for being like, okay, well, I had a moment where I didn't love how I acted, but like we're under so much pressure and so much stress and so much anxiety and so much, information that doesn't make sense and like all of the things, right? So forgiving myself for having a moment when I was not putting my best foot forward, as well as other people, and just saying, you know what, they're probably under the same. We know they're under the same stuff that we are, right? So, yeah, that's a really good point.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, Jesse, what do you got?
So I chose the episode from the original series because that's how I first got
Heck yeah.
to the series to Star Trek, the Journey to Babel, because it has a lot of different levels inside it. The character of Spock for me always was an inspiration because he went through a big journey in the original series, from being a very stoic person, being the outsider, to by the end of the series and even into the movies, you see that he's obviously an integral part of the crew. But with Journey to Babel, you saw the rejection from his family, and as people in the LGBT community, it's definitely something that a lot of us have dealt with. And it was interesting because it was something that I used to watch Star Trek with my family. I don't necessarily have the greatest relationship with all of them. So now me and my father are on great terms, and we watch Star Trek quite often, actually, whenever he comes to visit. But the Journey to Babel just showed that he was strong enough to still do what he had to. He was there even when his family needed him, when they didn't want him, and they didn't want him to be there for him. Even Sarek didn't want him to do the transfusion in there, and so it was definitely a growing moment as I've watched it over the years, and it's something that's definitely inspired me, because you see that you can change over the years, and you can change your relationship, even if it isn't an ideal relationship. You can still grow and make it work for how you for yourself. And again, that's really the character of Spock really did that for me through all growing up. Before I realized I was gay, before I realized, that I like to do drag, all that, I felt like an outsider, and I identified a lot with being able to still be me and unique and worthy and worth something, but not being like everyone else. So yeah, I definitely loved that.
Amazing. Good stuff. Well, that leaves me. And I guess we'll come back to Randy.
Come back to me.
I feel like Randy's gonna have a controversial opinion for us to fight about.
I mean, you gotta have something to talk about.
Oh, totally. Yeah. So I have trouble picking one. Obviously, I mean, we could have this discussion for days, right? But there are two in particular that stand out for me. The first one, very quickly, and actually I saw somebody in the comments mention it. Yeah, the episode where Nog goes to Captain Sisko about joining Starfleet. Voyager was about redemption. DS9. But yeah. So that's the B story of the Heart of Stone episode, right? The episode that like kind of everyone loves to hate. But that storyline meant so much to me. The lesson that you where you come from doesn't determine necessarily where you go, and that you can sort of change your destiny, I guess. That's something that means a whole lot to me. But in the context of the situation that we're all going through now, what I've really been thinking about is the DS9 episode, The Sound of Her Voice. And as a quick reminder, that's the episode where they're in the Defiant, end of a long mission, and they get this transmission coming from nowhere, this distress call from this captain from a ship that had been that had crashed on this planet, and over the course of them trying to get to her, they befriend her, and they spend a certain amount of time talking to her, a couple hours at a time. People take shifts, and of course this is the episode that sets up Jadzia's death, right? Because there's the scene at the end. We've already done Discovery spoilers. Yeah. But there's that scene at the end where they're at the funeral and O'Brien makes that speech about, you all are my friends and I want my friends in my life. And I am the kind of person, I stay perpetually busy, and sometimes I feel like I don't always put the priority that I should on the people that I love. And that episode to me is a very, very important reminder to take the time to make sure that you maintain connections with the people that you love. And so that's what I'm thinking about at the moment.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to put my dog back in his pen. But I really like that episode, Sound of Her Voice. It's, yeah, anyway.
Totes. So my weird one, like you said, we could go on all day long, and like it's impossible to pick one. So whenever someone asks me to pick, one Star Trek episode that blank, I usually try and pick one that is not super obvious, that people wouldn't necessarily think of, but actually does have a point if you kind of think about it. Like I like to just go that route. So the one that I picked, and also like Niki, my series is TNG, just because once again that's what I grew up with. I have watched everything else, like they're all wonderful and beautiful and I love them, but TNG is mine just because that's what I grew up with. So my ridiculous but not ridiculous choice is Remember Me from TNG. Because the static warp bubble is ridiculous, right? It's a West episode, we get it, whatever.
Yeah.
There's
But
nothing
like,
wrong with you, Randy.
I know.
Oh, there's something wrong with the universe.
Exactly. There's something wrong with the universe. And we have stupid lines like that.
Yeah.
But like if you think about like how that would feel, it kind of feels like I feel now. Like, people aren't technically disappearing, but like as this has gone on, right? Like there are less and less people in the streets and the store that you talk to, that you see. At least for me, like I live by myself. So there's just, if I don't do something like this, like if the internet went down, I would be like, are there still people out that like I don't really know necessarily, so the feeling is the same, right? And the like that clearly like poor Dr. Crusher was having anxiety over the fact that like people were like literally disappearing. And as sort of cheesy as it was, because it's Star Trek in the 90s and it's TNG and whatever, but I think that the message is still there, and I totally identify with how it feels to have like the people around you sort of disappearing, at least in some way these days.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but that's a really good point. It almost does feel like you're in your own little bubble.
Static bubble. Yeah.
Right. And I talk to myself. I talk to myself anyway, or I talk to my computer or whatever anyway. But yeah, that I didn't even think about that. But yeah, there's a couple people made some pretty funny comments about that.
No doubt.
Yeah, I was gonna say, since
No
we've
doubt.
kind of gone around the room, let's pick some discussion comments. I actually really enjoy this one.
Yes,
I also
I did
like the
too.
existence of Ryza because it made sexuality less like a thing that you should be ashamed of. I grew up in Texas in small towns or big churches, and not just homosexuality, but sexuality at all was an inevitability, but a shameful one you didn't talk about. I hadn't thought about that before, but I really like that take. Let's discuss.
Also, hi, Micah. Micah's a friend of mine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
When I lived in Dallas. It's good to see you, talk to you online. No, that's an excellent point. And once again, like them getting around it, right, on the TV show by like, oh, it's the sexy planet, it's fine, like whatever. Right. But no, I do like the fact that they didn't shy away from it. Like at least for me, I feel like on the ship, they did not show what probably would have been happening, which was people in the holodeck doing weird things. And like legitimately, like you can't tell me that wouldn't happen. Like no human did not evolve so much in a couple hundred years that they don't have any sexual needs anymore. And they're stuck on a ship. Of course, people are going to be in there. And if you watch the Orville, they actually talk about that, and rightly so, because it's something that would actually happen, and it's under the guise of this hilarious thing. But it's true, like people, like you're stuck in this thing, and I'm sure that people like today feel it, right? We're stuck in this thing, and like what do you do? But for them to talk about it and open it up and not have it not be a thing that mattered. And once again, like everything in TNG, like everything was either a metaphor or an over here, let's go investigate what that is. It's not us. To tell that message. So that's how Ryza was just like the sexy planet. It's like, oh, it's just what they do on that planet. It's totally fine. It's not us. It's not, Starfleet. It's over there. But we're going to go see what that's like. And it was not terrible. And it was, people were having a good time, and it was totally okay. So that's a really good point.
Speaking of learning lessons, we have Captain Pommy here saying Tilly is a blessing. Listen, Tilly...
Hashtag Team Tilly.
I feel like if there was ever a combination of characters that I identify the most deeply with, it's probably Saru and Tilly, because one of my things is that I'm just like so enthusiastically in love with everything and so nerdy about everything, and that's just totally her energy, and I love that so much, and it's just a really cool thing to see people embrace.
I agree. I love Tilly. She's so much fun. She's so cute, and they have built her up. Like, I feel like the writers or the producers or whoever, decide they saw her character and were like, oh, let's bump her up a little bit. And they have, and she's become, more of a rounded out character, but she's still like dorky and hilarious and lovable and amazing. And I'm glad that they've, ramped that up rather than sort of, they could have left her in the background with that. But I'm glad that they're showing real people. So fight me about it not being real Star Trek.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Tilly's one of my favorites as well. She wasn't at first. When I first saw the series, I was a little bit like, Tilly. But, again, I've been rewatching things and have kind of seen it a little differently than I guess the first take, which I think sometimes that happens with with anything really, right. I think Tilly is really fantastic, and I'm really excited to see her in season 3 and seeing where they take her character. I mean, she's obviously going to grow and expand. I think that's really awesome. Yeah, same, right? Like they progressed her, and so like I don't know her, the actress, personally, so I can't ask her like, was that you or them? Like what? But I mean, I feel like on TV shows that happens a lot where they catch on to a character or an actor that's doing really well, like bigger than their acting bigger than their character, and they're like, let's pull some more of that in, and that happens a lot. And bless her, because I'm loving some Tilly. Yeah, and it's Saru as well. Saru is one of.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I kind of want them to make him the captain, because we've never really had a lead
alien
actor alien captain.
Yeah.
I think that would be cool. Or Michael Burnham. I mean, it would be groundbreaking, right? But I really do like Saru. I think that would be kind of interesting. So.
Love it.
There was a comment. It was fairly up further. Sarah Yoko. It's on Twitch, by the way.
Oh, I'll look. Yeah.
And it says, not an episode, but I think there it is. Geordi and Data taught me how to be friends with people on the spectrum. And I really like that. I like that comment just because it does show a friendship and a relationship and how, you can really work together. And just because there's someone that is dealing with, not having any emotions, doesn't mean that you ignore them, doesn't mean that you can't make a lasting connection. I actually have a cousin who's on the spectrum, very high functioning Asperger's, and he's great. I love anytime, holidays, family holidays, that I get a chance to talk to him, and just the way in which he embraces life, and he's so lovable, and it's so interesting. I didn't even think about that as just like different individual relationships on the show. But I love that Star Trek allows for all these different components to it. So it's not just like, how do we deal specifically with adversity, but how do we deal with maybe a struggle in a type of relationship, or something that might be a little bit more challenging in certain ways, but it's good. It's good in that way. I love it.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, great.
I don't think I even ever thought about it like that.
Oh, I
And
didn't.
once again, that's them like, hiding it under layers of like alien or robot or whatever. Yeah.
I know I have several autistic friends who very much identify with Data.
Huh.
And I mean, folks of all flavors of neurodivergence, I think, find a lot of solace in characters like that, which I think is wonderful. It's just like a lot of things. Like I wish they could just explicitly name the thing instead of hiding it under layers of metaphor.
Yes. Me too. I mean, that's what we've said. Us coming together to do this whole thing, right? Is like for 50 years, gay was a metaphor. And now it's actually a real thing. So maybe we'll get there in another 50 years. I don't know. But yeah, I do. It is not the same thing. Like you get the same essence of it, but it's not the same thing having someone that's a metaphor for gay versus actually seeing a gay person on TV. So I do appreciate that we're moving forward with that.
I have another episode that I really enjoy. That I'd like. I mean, I don't know. Do you guys remember Workforce from Voyager?
Which one is it? I don't know the name.
Workforce.
Yeah, the episode where they get abducted and brainwashed and like they work in that power plant or whatever.
Oh yes, yeah.
And I feel like we're living in today's world. I feel like they're always trying to brainwash us, right?
It's not working because I told you not to say that.
But I really, one of my favorite moments, it's right at the end where, obviously, Janeway realizes that she is the captain. She's been brought back to, back to reality. And she's, saying goodbye to her lover and she's in tears. And then moments later, she's back on the bridge and she walks onto the bridge and Harry Kim's like, "Got it on bridge," and he's really excited. And she's just, her shoulders, her head is very heavy and she just kind of looks around and she's like, "Oh boy, back." And I don't think that she really wanted to be back. And, but she had to be the captain and she sat down and she kind of put on a little bit of a show, I think, in terms of her state of mind. And she just kind of was like, Chakotay's like, "You ready to go?" And she's like, "Sure. Okay." Like she's like, whatever. And I just think, so I think that the lesson I felt that was really important and a reminder is that sometimes life is hard. Sometimes things are not easy. And that we have to keep going. We have to keep pushing forward. Sometimes we don't want to. And especially right now with the coronavirus, people are isolated, feeling alone and lonely. I mean, like, it's just, we have to get through it. It will end. And even though it can be hard for people. So
yeah.
Absolutely.
I have people, friends that I talk to, not in person, but friends that I talk to. Just want to make sure I'm being safe. I'm doing the thing. But no, I have friends that I talk to, and like we have to remind each other, like, this isn't forever, right? Like, because we don't know when the end is. It feels like forever, but we have to remind ourselves and each other, like, this is not forever, right? It will eventually end. When it's safe, we will all go back to, at least close to what we have no idea what's going to happen, but like it's not forever. And that's a really important thing to keep in mind. And it's hard to keep that in your head even. Yeah. Because you go outside and it's like, it looks like the world has disappeared basically. Yeah. It's really hard to just remind yourself like, okay, it's just for right now.
Yeah.
So I have a topic for another adversary thing, and it's actually kind of the show within the show adversity dealing with this is a little bit of some spoiler alerts for anyone who hasn't watched Picard, but we won't go into great detail. But I'm actually curious what you guys think about the way in which they've been handling the Borg, because originally on TNG, the Borg were these big, mean, our enemy type situation. And now they're shifting the focus and making it, showing you a different viewpoint of like, no, these were actually people and they were tortured and robbed of their identity and robbed of their humanity. And So they're definitely switching in how we view someone who would have been originally looked at as an enemy. And I actually love how they're doing that on the new show.
Yeah.
And just basically giving you a new perspective. And it's a way in which they're dealing with the own adversity within the Star Trek.
Yeah. And it was funny that that moment, I don't think I'm giving much away, but there's a moment in Picard where they like blow a whole bunch of like Borg people out into space, and I like felt bad for them. I was like, oh my God, like, because I mean, you see it, you know, and it just like, it was a terrible moment. And like, they were in the middle of that, you know, that thing where they're making the Borg not seem as bad, and they're these, but just shooting them off into space. I was like, oh my God, like they were saving those people, were trying to save those people. So it's weird to have that shift.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting, because they brought it from the point of perspective of the Romulans, who weren't necessarily weren't treating them as the Federation would have treated them, how they treated Seven of Nine, how they treated Picard when they liberated them from the Borg. It was definitely a different shift to show how it was they just weren't being looked at as humans. And then they had Hugh, and they had this Federation scientists that were on board who were treating them differently than everyone else was, the people who were in charge of the artifact. So it brought almost a couple different viewpoints and a couple different ways to look at it as well.
Yeah,
I like Captain Pommy's comment where it says, whereas in First Contact, when they floated away into space, we were relieved,
right?
But this is a big flip, because now you actually feel all of those feelings that Seven is actually feeling when everybody gets basically pulled away.
Right. I mean, I feel like even they probably should have started that message with Locutus, because the second you know that someone can recover from it, you have to change, right? You have to be like, okay, wait, now these are people, right? Because they didn't know before. They thought like, oh, well, they're completely brain dead, or they're not even actually people anymore. But like once you extract it, and of course Seven too, obviously, but like once you take someone out of that and they become a person again, like you really have to start thinking how you handle things then.
Yeah, exactly.
Not that you should ever just like blow people up because you think they're brain dead, but I'm just saying like it should cause a shift. It's like, oh no, wait, people can come out of this. It is possible. This has to it has to shift something.
Right.
I'm Jake. I can blow people up anytime.
Yeah. It's fine.
We have like 10 minutes left before we're going to take our break.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any, let's look at the comments. I want to pull in some people.
Sure. And don't forget to hit that donate button. We do appreciate it.
We do. All the money is going to Sage, the nonprofit that is supporting LGBTQ elders.
Yes. Sorry, you were going to say something.
No, that was it.
Oh, that was it.
I was plugging Sage. That's part of my job, is just to plug where we're going to donate.
Thank you. I love that. Happy rainbows.
Here's a fun one from BB Livid. It's, romance is something that the show was not always great at, but I loved Kira, Odo, and how long and real that relationship felt. I would agree that I was going to say TNG, but I would agree that Star Trek sometimes struggle with the romance issue.
Good
For
Lord.
any of you fans out there that are Picard Crusher fans, we want our relationship. But yes, I would have to say they definitely did a much better job with Kira and Odo on DS9. And
I don't know where that came from, and Nana Visitor does not know where that came from. She was blindsided. She's like, I will do it, but I never really felt like that's where you wanted me to go until now.
Yeah.
So that's also a credit to the actors that they're like, okay, this is where this is. Okay, great. It was never a thing before. It's a thing now. This is where we're going. Great.
They had wanted Janeway to be, in a relationship with Chakotay. And I think Kate Mulgrew, was like, absolutely not. Look at him. I'm kidding.
Well, she had lizard babies with someone else.
Said absolutely not. That lends all new meaning to the Ready Room.
Right.
So I'm glad they never had her in a relationship per se. I think it's hard when it's the captain, right?
Yeah, I guess that is because you do have to. Yeah, you have
Kirk's
to
relationship was with
watch
Enterprise.
yourself. What? Sorry.
Kirk's relationship. They always said that the Enterprise was his love. And
Right.
the of Troyes, the way they cured him of the tears that made people listen to her was the Enterprise. He went back to the Enterprise, and that was his true love.
Right. Yeah, and you do see Captain Janeway sort of grinding on the ship, a little bit. So it does check out. Oh, or maybe that's just Heather. Maybe I'm just used to seeing Heather grind on the ship, and it's conflated in my head now. Sorry.
You just gotta pan the camera just a little bit to the left. And
Just grind that bulkhead.
actually, she is in this photo, this background photo, just like expand it just a little bit.
Yeah, that's perfect.
With Chicote.
I love it. What else? Who
Odo
else do we
and
have?
that one Tribble. Okay, I have to say, like, the chats and all of your comments have been fabulous. We've been watching, and I've just been laughing. And like Randy was saying something serious, and I started laughing. I was like, "Not what Randy's saying." Just
That was fun. Thanks, Sarah, who just donated as well. Yay!
Yeah, thank you. Thank
Oh,
you.
here's a hot take for.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Walks on in literally anyone. But,
That's hilarious. Hi, Johnny. He just said hello to everyone. Hi, Johnny.
Hey, Johnny, what's up?
Oh, do we not have discourse about Loxana? I feel like we need discourse about Loxana.
Oh, sure. Yeah, discourse about. I love her. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, not only because Majel, but
Majel.
Loxana in general, like, she just does whatever the hell she wants, and not in a bad way, right? But like, she is just living her life, and I don't know. There's something very freeing about like watching her character, regardless of how like spazzy or whatever she is. Like, I just like when she comes on the screen, it's just like a breath of fresh air because she's just adorable and just like doing her thing. And I also always love her and Deanna together because Deanna's always so mad at her. It's just hilarious.
Aww.
They worked really well together.
And I would say the one episode that was a little bit more on the serious end, Half a Life. I mean, that was definitely helps you deal with adversity of like how do you respect somebody else's wishes about how they would like to die, And she was just like so frustrated because she's like, no, but you are healthy and you can live and do things, and like this is ridiculous. Why? And the guy was just like, this is my culture. This is what we do. When you hit a certain age, you do this ritual and you die. And so it was that's definitely one that I think at a young age I didn't fully understand, but it definitely planted that seed in my head of like being aware and being accepting of other people's cultures.
Yeah, that's a good point.
For sure.
Yeah.
I was thinking of Loxana and Odo, though, like that one episode of DS9, because to be honest, she was not my favorite character, but the episode where there's like Odo and her and the turbo lift together and there's that whole moment. Ugh.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
It's true.
At Daniel, the episode that you're talking about is The Host. I know my episodes.
Oh yes. She's the girl, right?
The episode where Dr. Crusher says that being straight is a limited perspective.
Yeah, which if you watch any panels and interviews that Gates gives, she talks about how, reminds everyone it was the 90s writing for a show, and how like that was as far as they could go.
Yeah.
And now if it was rewritten again today, it would probably have a totally different ending.
Oh yeah, she would just like get with her probably, I mean, because why not, like especially in TNG, they would be over the next week anyway. They don't talk about it anymore, so it would be fine to end the episode that way because next week we'll just pretend it didn't happen because it resets the whole universe reset.